The air hung heavy. Still. Calcutta, 1989. June. The monsoon was late. Heat shimmered from the pavements, even before dawn. Under the Howrah Bridge, a man slept. His name was unknown. His life, a daily struggle. He was one of many. The city's forgotten. He dreamt, perhaps, of a full meal, or a dry place to rest. He did not see the shadow detach itself from the deeper darkness. A figure moved with quiet purpose and a heavy stone. The stone was large, jagged, lifted high, then brought down, a sickening thud, the only sound. The sleeper did not cry out. His dreams ended. Blood pooled slowly, soaking into the grimy sackcloth that was his bed. The figure watched for a moment, then melted back into the labyrinth of sleeping forms and shuttered shops. The city did not stir, not yet. The first light of dawn was still a promise that would reveal a horror. A milkman found him. His can clattered on the stones. His shout pierced the morning calm. Soon, a small crowd gathered, faces etched with shock and a dawning fear. Police arrived, their boots crunched on the gritty surface. They saw the crushed skull, the heavy stone bloodied lying nearby, just another nameless dead, or something more sinister. This was not a common street brawl. This was cold, calculated, brutal. The questions began, whispered at first. Who was he? Why him? Who could do such a thing? The sun climbed higher, hotter. The city awoke to its noise, its chaos, its indifference. But for some on that June morning, a seed of terror was planted. A terror that would grow, that would spread, that would be given a name. The Stoneman. His work had begun, and the city was his unwilling stage, its most vulnerable, its first victims. Bombay and Calcutta, two titans of India. In the 1980s, they pulsed with life, with ambition, with desperation. Millions flocked to them, seeking fortunes, or just survival. The city swelled, groaning under the weight. Skyscrapers scraped the sky, but in their shadows another world existed. A world of makeshift homes, of hunger, of people living on the edge, pavement dwellers they were called. Part of the city's landscape, yet invisible. Calcutta, with its colonial grandeur fading, its teeming alleys, its political ferment. The air thick with the smell of diesel fumes and frying luchis and poverty. Raw, unshielded. Lakhs lived on the streets, under flyovers, in forgotten corners. Bombay, the city of dreams, of Bollywood, of the stock exchange, but also of Dharavi, of chawls bursting at the seams. Here too the homeless sought refuge. On Marine Drive, in railway stations. Anywhere a little space could be found. The nights were a different world. The bustling streets emptied, somewhat. A fragile peace descended, broken by the distant horn of a train, or the bark of a stray dog. For those without a roof, night was the most dangerous time. They were exposed, vulnerable. They slept with one eye open. Trust was a luxury few could afford. The police offered little protection. They had bigger problems, or so it seemed. These were cities of stark contrasts, of dazzling lights and deep, dark shadows. It was in these shadows that the Stoneman would hunt. He understood the city's underbelly. He knew its rhythms, its forgotten spaces. His victims were those who had already been failed by the system, those whose absence might not be immediately noticed, or mourned by many. The anonymity of the metropolis, the sheer number of people. This was his camouflage, his hunting ground. The socio-economic fabric of these cities, stretched thin, provided the perfect canvas for his terror. The killings started. One by one. First in Calcutta. Then, a few years earlier, a similar pattern had haunted Bombay. The victims were almost always the same. Homeless people, rag pickers, rickshaw pullers. Those who slept in the open, unprotected. They were the city's lowest rung. Their lives, already precarious, made infinitely more so by an unseen predator. They were chosen, it seemed, for their vulnerability, their helplessness. The weapon never varied. A heavy stone, sometimes a concrete slab, weighing up to 30 kilograms, lifted, and smashed onto the victim's head. Usually while they slept. Death was instant, brutal. The skull crushed beyond recognition. There was no struggle, no warning. Just a swift, horrific end. The killer left the stone at the scene, a grim calling card, a signature carved in blood and bone. It was an act of utter depravity, pure, unadulterated violence. There were no signs of robbery. Valuables, if any, were left untouched. No evidence of sexual assault. The motive seemed to be the killing itself, the act of extinguishing a life. This baffled the police and terrified the public. A killer without a discernible motive is the most frightening kind. He is unpredictable. His targets seemingly random, beyond their shared vulnerability. The Stoneman, as he was soon dubbed, was not after money. He was after life. The precision was chilling. The killer knew how to use the stone, to inflict maximum damage, to ensure death. He moved like a ghost, unseen, unheard, leaving behind only a mangled body and the murder weapon. The attacks always occurred in the dead of night, or the pre-dawn hours, when the city was at its quietest, when potential witnesses were deep in slumber, or too afraid to look. His method was consistent, terrifyingly so. A ritual of death enacted on the city's streets. Panic spread, like a contagion, first through the homeless communities, then to the entire city. Sleep became a luxury, especially for those on the pavements. They started sleeping in groups, huddled together for warmth, for safety. But the Stoneman was bold. He would strike even then, picking off someone at the edge, or finding a lone straggler. The fear was palpable, a cold dread that settled over the slums and footpaths. Every shadow seemed to hide a threat. Every night brought fresh anxiety. The stories multiplied, became distorted, each telling more horrifying than the last. Rumors ran wild. Was it one man or a gang? Was he a madman, a sadist, a practitioner of some dark ritual? People started seeing the Stoneman everywhere, in every suspicious stranger, in every dark corner. The city's imagination, fueled by terror, conjured a monster of protean form. Some even whispered of supernatural forces. Such was the desperation to understand, to explain the unexplainable. Vigilante groups formed, armed with lathis and iron rods. They patrolled the streets at night. Their intentions were to protect. But fear and suspicion often led to tragedy. Innocent people were attacked, mistaken for the killer. The police, already overwhelmed, now had to deal with public hysteria and mob justice. The social fabric of the affected areas began to fray. Trust eroded, replaced by a pervasive sense of unease. The Stoneman was not just killing individuals. He was wounding the city's soul. "We used to sleep here near the station," a rickshaw puller in Calcutta might have said, his voice low. "Now we don't know. Every night we pray. We pray the morning comes, and we are still alive. My children with Sasa. They wait for me at home. What if one night?" The unspoken fear hung heavy in his words. The police were in a fix, a terrible one. In Calcutta, the pressure mounted with each new body. In Bombay, years before, a similar frustration had festered. The Stoneman left no fingerprints, no traceable clues, just the brutalized victim and the stone. The stones themselves were ordinary, from construction sites, from roadside debris, untraceable. The killer was a phantom. He slipped through their fingers, again and again, leaving a trail of death and mocking their efforts. Task forces were formed, senior officers assigned, hundreds of policemen deployed. They patrolled the streets. They questioned informants. They rounded up vagrants, history sheeters, anyone who seemed remotely suspicious. The interrogation rooms were busy, but yielded little. Suspects were picked up, held, sometimes beaten. But without evidence, they had to be released. The police were shooting in the dark, chasing shadows. Their methods grew more desperate, their resources stretched thin. The lack of witnesses was a major hurdle. The attacks happened in darkness, in areas where people were asleep or too scared to come forward. Those who did offer information often provided vague, contradictory descriptions. A tall man, a short man, cloaked in darkness. The fear of reprisal was also strong. What if the Stoneman saw them talking to the police? The public, while demanding action, was also wary. The relationship between the police and the poor was often fraught with mistrust. Challenges were immense. Forensic science in India in the 1980s was not what it is today. The crime scenes were often contaminated, by crowds, by the elements. Before proper collection could occur, the sheer scale of the investigation was daunting. Patrolling vast urban areas, sifting through countless dead ends. The pressure from politicians, from the media, from a terrified public. It was a relentless grind. And with every new murder, the sense of failure, the frustration, it deepened within the ranks. The Stoneman was winning. The police were losing hope. The city was losing faith. The killer remained elusive. A ghost in the night. A phantom of fear. The hunt continued. But the trail grew colder. The killer's shadow loomed larger. The police were desperate. The city was desperate. The Stoneman was winning. The police were losing hope. The city was losing faith. The killer remained elusive. A ghost in the night. A phantom of fear. The hunt continued. But the trail grew colder. The newspapers screamed. In bold black headlines, Stoneman strikes again. City of fear. Who is the pavement killer? The media latched onto the story with a grim fascination. It was a story that sold papers, that kept readers hooked. The Stoneman became a media sensation, a dark celebrity. His every supposed move, his brutality, dissected, analyzed, and speculated upon. The name itself, Stoneman, was likely a media coinage. Catchy, chilling, unforgettable. The coverage was often sensationalist. Gruesome details of the murders were published, sometimes embellished. Artists' impressions of the killer, based on flimsy accounts, stared out from the front pages, creating a bogeyman for the public imagination. The media fueled the fear, but also perhaps a strange kind of excitement, a morbid curiosity. People devoured the news, discussed it in tea stalls, in local trains, in their homes. The Stoneman became a part of the city's folklore, a modern-day monster. Who was the Stoneman? The question haunted everyone, from the highest police officials to the humblest chaiwala. Theories abounded, each more unsettling than the last. Was he a single individual or a copycat phenomenon? The consistency of the method suggested a lone killer, a meticulous, patient predator. Someone who knew the city's dark underbelly intimately. Someone who could blend in, disappear. Some theories painted him as a deranged psychopath, killing for the sheer thrill of it. A sadist deriving pleasure from the act of bludgeoning defenseless people. Others suggested a more specific motive. Perhaps a disgruntled worker, fired from a job, taking revenge on society's most vulnerable. Or someone with a deep-seated hatred for the homeless, a vigilante with a twisted sense of justice. The police explored every angle, every possibility, no matter how outlandish. There were whispers of ritualistic killings, tantric practices, human sacrifice. In a land where superstition often walks hand in hand with modernity, such theories found fertile ground, especially when rational explanations failed. Then, as mysteriously as they began, the killings stopped. In Calcutta, after 13 confirmed murders in 1989, the Stoneman vanished. In Bombay, the earlier wave of similar killings in the mid-1980s also ceased. Did he die? Was he arrested for another crime? Did he simply move on, leaving behind a city breathing a collective, uneasy sigh of relief? But the relief was tinged with a persistent question. Where did he go? The cases grew cold. Files were shelved, gathering dust in police archives. The urgency faded, replaced by the daily grind of new crimes, new horrors. But the Stoneman was never forgotten. He became a ghost story, a cautionary tale whispered in the city's dark lanes. For the police, it was an unsolved chapter, a blot on their record, a testament to a killer who outwitted them. For the victims' families, if they had any, there was no closure. Just the enduring pain of a brutal, senseless loss. The terror left an indelible mark on the psyche of both cities. It exposed the vulnerability of a vast section of the population, the forgotten people, living and dying on the streets, unseen, unmourned. The Stoneman forced society to look, if only for a while, at this harsh reality. The fear he instilled lingered for years. People sleeping on pavements remained wary. Every unexplained death, every shadow could reignite the old dread, the echo of his heavy stone. Today, in 2025, the Stoneman is more legend than man. A chilling chapter in India's true crime history, The pavements of Calcutta and Mumbai still cradle the homeless. Their numbers have not dwindled. Their vulnerability perhaps remains unchanged. The stones still lie by the roadside, silent witnesses to a terror that once gripped these cities. A terror that officially has no face, no name, no final answer. The silence surrounding his ultimate fate is as heavy as the weapons he wielded. The questions persist. Did the authorities truly do everything they could? Was there a cover-up? Or was the Stoneman simply too cunning, too elusive for the investigative tools of that era? These questions hang in the air, unanswered, adding to the mystique and the enduring fear. The possibility that he was never caught means he could have lived out his days, an old man carrying a monstrous secret. Or perhaps he died taking his secrets with him to the grave. The Stoneman's legacy is not just in the death toll. It is in the fear he sowed, in the questions he left behind. He highlighted the stark divide between the haves and have-nots, the seen and the unseen. In a way, he held up a dark mirror to society, forcing a brief, uncomfortable glimpse at its own failings, at the people it leaves behind, the people who become easy prey. Not just for human predators, but for apathy, for neglect. And so the story ends without an end. A chilling silence, a void where justice should be. Could he still be out there? Unlikely, given the passage of time, but the idea, the possibility, that is what haunts.